In my 20s, I was able to achieve a top 5% net worth by just working a corporate job as an engineer in Hawaii. In this video, I'm going to share with you the top 10 real lessons that I learned over those years and how you can use these tips to accelerate your wealth building journey. None of this is theoretical. These are all things that I've personally been through, so I hope this can help you all out. And I'll give you a bonus lesson at the end, so be sure to stay till the end to find that one out. So if you're ready to go, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and hit the notification bell below so you can join our growing family here on YouTube. And now let's get into it. So tip number 1, start saving aggressively and early. So what do I mean by this? I mean live with your parents or live with other people and try to cut your expenses down to as low as possible. Especially if you're in your early 20s, who cares who you live with? Just save as much as you can. So for example, let's say you make $70,000 a year. So after taxes, that's around $55,000 a year, depending on where you live. So that ends up being about $4,583 per month after taxes. And say you save 30% of that take-home pay, which is probably more than most people do, you'll save about $1,375 per month, or about $16,500 per year. So again, a $70,000 salary, you're only really saving roughly $16,000 a year, which again, that's if you're doing everything right. So it will take you about 5 to 6 years, with raises, all that kind of stuff. If you're diligent, follow the process, it's going to take you about 5 to 6 years to get that first $100,000 saved. And I don't know if you've seen all these videos where they're your net worth explodes after $100,000. So that's the figure that we're using here. But again, say that you save more than the 30%. Say you don't have a living expense, or because you're living with your parents, it's just a very little rental thing. You can cut down this time frame by 2 to 3 years. And that's exactly what I did for the first 3 to 4 years. I lived with my parents. So by the time I was 24, I had a pretty big nest egg built up. So I was able to invest in real estate or, deploy my money elsewhere. And that was during a time where I didn't have big life commitment, but it just gave me that flexibility to be able to do things. So you want to live on as little as you can, be super uncomfortable for those first 2 to 3 years, and that will honestly help set you up for later years in your life when you're really going to need that capital. So depending on where you are in your 20s and when you're deciding to get serious about this wealth building journey, shaving those 2 to 3 years can mean a lot. Say if you're in your late 20s and you're trying to start a family and do all those things by the time you're 30, you want to be able to cut down that timeline as soon as you can. To me, take the 2 to 3 years of discomfort and save as much money as you possibly can. So I think if you go into it in that mindset that you're going to do this for a couple years, I think it'll work out for you. So lesson number 2, especially early in your 20s, invest everything that you can. So why? Why invest? What is that? What are we doing? The main reason why is saving is not enough to really accelerate your wealth building. There's this thing called inflation that you may have heard about in the news, but basically that's the way that the Federal Reserve kind of manipulates our money supply, and it makes things more expensive over time. The reason they do this is that if you know that prices are going to increase in the future, you're more likely to buy today, helping spur economic growth, all that whatever stuff. So that means that your money needs to be making some sort of return that's at least greater than the percentage of inflation. Sitting in a bank account, not gaining that much. So you have to invest your money. And especially early in your 20s, to me, you should be maxing it out and investing almost everything. So I would say the best return that you can get is by investing in yourself. Even if you invest in the markets and stuff like that, technically you get anywhere from a 2 to 10% return, and that would be considered good. When you invest in yourself, I almost guarantee that you're gonna get better returns than that. Whether it's in education, taking courses, or just investing in your health, your body, all that kind of stuff. After that, maxing out your company retirement accounts to make sure that you're getting as much money from your company, maxing out your Roth IRA contributions, and then again, investing the difference in either the markets, real estate, whatever you want. Because usually in your early 20s, you don't have a family, you don't have people that depend on your income, I guess besides yourself, so you can afford to take some more risk. So for me, I dumped all of my money in real estate, and it worked out, and we'll actually talk about a little teaser for later. But I'll be honest with you, after I invested all of that money in there, I barely had anything in my checking account. It was uncomfortable. It didn't feel great. I didn't feel rich by any means, but at least I was able to invest. My assets actually did appreciate, which helps out. But again, you want to be investing early, and then you always hear about, the compound effects. The earlier you do it, then the bigger the hockey stick at the end of your career or life. So I would suggest, especially early on in your 20s, whatever you're saving, start investing it. Get yourself a little uncomfortable and get yourself used to the process of continuously trying to invest and helping your money work for you. So lesson number 3, real estate is good, but maybe temper some of your expectations on how passive it is. So these are all things that I learned firsthand, right? Like real estate takes a lot of capital because you have to put a down payment. And some people will say, you can put down 0% or, you can do the 3% FHA. I get it. But whenever you're going into a real estate deal, and this is, my personal opinion, with so little money down, it's just going to increase your monthly payment. So you're not going to be able to realistically save as much unless you can make the numbers work, in some different parts of the country or wherever. But typically, right, you get a higher interest rate, you're gonna have to pay PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. So all of these added costs get added to your monthly payment. So you can't save that 30% that we were talking about earlier, and you're just gonna be paying more interest, more monthly. So that's that, but it's, you're tying up. So I would say normally you wanna try to have 20%, which is difficult, right? And that's why we were saying earlier that $100,000 you wanted to save, 20% is for like a $500,000 home or condo or whatever $500,000 gets you in whatever location that you are. It's not like you just put the down payment and that's it. So you gotta pay closing costs when you buy and when you sell. There's all of these other fees that you have to pay when you own a home, for insurance, all those things, escrow. And then say even if you rent it out, there's taxes on that. There's maintenance that you have to pay. There's, vacancies, repairs on your unit. So just to be real here, I bought my condo back in the day for $434,000. I sold it for $580,000. Sounds great, right? Like I should have made like $150,000 on this. But that wasn't exactly what happened. When I took into account the maintenance fees I paid on my condo, the interest I paid, all the different closing costs, all the taxes, even for the renter that came in. When I tallied all of that up, it was as if I broke even. And the time that I lived there, maybe I lived there for 2 years, that was just free living for me. Which again is not nothing, but it's not the same as the $150,000 that, I think people advertise when they say,
I sold my place.
So I just want to be real with you guys here because that's something that I didn't personally really realize when I was going into real estate. And the other thing was that it wasn't very liquid. It was very hard for me to pull that money out. So though I had it in my net worth, that I had, this equity in my property, until I sold, it was just theoretical. It wasn't real. I couldn't tangibly have that cash. So if I wanted to make a move on something, if I wanted to buy another place, you have to go through the whole process of closing, and that can take over a month. And that's when I really ran the numbers, it was like if I had just invested that money in the markets, I would have probably made the same return on it, especially, COVID made things a little wild. But anyway, when you just look at it that way, I would have made a similar return with a lot less hassle on the back end, and I would have had access to my funds whenever I wanted it. So again, real estate has been good to me. I'm very appreciative that I was able to get the properties at the prices that I got, but I just want to put it out there and be very honest with you about it's not all that it seems to be sometimes, and you have to do your research and make sure that you truly understand what you're getting into. So lesson number 4, stop comparing yourself to people. They say comparison is the thief of joy, but you see people with the new iPhone or a new car or a new house or whatever. Like, just don't worry about what other people are doing. It's something that I realized is that, as I went through my 20s, I saw a bunch of people doing, a lot of different things. You're always wondering, like, how are they affording that? Like, how is this happening, right? And it makes you feel worse about your situation, but I'll be honest with you, like, you don't know what other people are going through, how they're doing that. And there's so many people that are actually just faking it, and you don't want to compare your reality to someone else's highlight reel or sometimes staged photos. And as I spent more time around people that had actual wealth, people later on in their life, those people don't do all the glamorous, flashy things that people that are acting like they are wealthy, maybe around our age or younger. So that was really eye-opening for me to see the reality of what wealth can look like. And it's usually not what you see online. So again, I just want people, just focus on yourself, focus on your own situation, and just make sure you're improving every single day, and you'll get there. So lesson number 5, and I might be stealing this from Hormozy, but I thought this was really profound when he said it, that wealth is not a number, it's a ratio. of your income and your expenses. So really what you're looking at is how can I increase my income and how can I decrease my expenses to improve on that ratio. And a lot of times it is easier to cut back on your expenses. And my new outlook on money and wealth really is about, do I feel that level of freedom where I have that balance of my income to my expenses? Because if you're spending the same amount that you're bringing in, you're never going to feel free, because every single month you have to churn to feed the beast that you've created because of your expenses. So that's why too, even with all my investments that I got really aggressive on at the beginning of my 20s, I was uncomfortable. But as I sold and tried to keep my expenses the same, made more money, on my income side of things, I started to see that gap that I was creating between my expenses and my income, and the freedom that I felt with that. It's something that is so powerful, and I think that everybody should be striving for. And to increase that income, I want to talk about lesson number 6. Focusing on skills and not money. Because chasing dollars doesn't mean much to me. It's not an actionable step. Whereas if you're chasing skills and learning, that usually leads to money. But why does it lead to money? Because you're gaining some kind of marketable skill, some kind of marketable tactic. You're providing value to the workplace or to the industry. So when you focus on the learning, you become inevitably more valuable. People are willing to pay for that skill set. So whenever you're at work, try to figure out how you can provide the most value, how your business works, and work on all of those skills. And as you work on them, you get quicker at it and you can learn more skills and stack them on top of each other. And then you become a very valuable asset to the team or maybe other people. And along those lines, lesson number 7 is taking charge of your career. So focusing on the skills, focusing on the learning, right? But you want to make sure that you're being intentional with how you're moving throughout your career. Whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're just working for a company as an employee like me, you want to make sure that you're being very intentional and making sure your career is moving in an upwards trajectory. So what does that mean? A lot of times that means that you need to make sure that your manager is well aware of everything that you're doing. Your manager usually ultimately is the person that is giving you the review, the person that is going to help move you forward. If you don't have that relationship, start to foster that. Especially if you're working for a big company, your name is gonna have to be known. And a lot of times people say
I will let my work speak for itself.
And that's fine, that's good. And yes, great work does get recognized, but sometimes you have to give that little extra push. I've seen that personally myself. So again, you wanna take ownership of that. You wanna make sure that you're being very intentional with taking charge of your career. And ultimately, that's gonna be your biggest move to increase your salary or your income. Is by doing the work, getting rewarded for it, moving up, expanding your skill set. So lesson number 8, finding role models. So especially if you're talking about building wealth, if you don't have anyone in your circle that has done it, it's very hard for you to know where you're going. I'm so big now on environment, like just surrounding yourself with people that are very close to your goals, because they can help you get there because they're already there. So that's part of the reason why I joined a country club, because I wanted to meet people that, were in that level of affluence, business owners or, high achieving individuals, so that in passing, they could just teach me how they got there. And again, the last thing you want to do is take advice from somebody that's not where you want to be. So by surrounding yourself with people that are very close to the goals that you're trying to achieve, you can get that guidance. So there have been so many times where I ask people about something as simple as, should I take this job offer that I got? Or I have this problem at work. What do you think about that? And a lot of times them just resetting your reality of, oh, that's not a big deal, or oh no, you should push in this direction. That just streamlines your process, and you're taking all that learning that they've had over decades and they're just giving that straight to you because you have that relationship. And that's been such a big hack, I think, for me, is to be able to think that big picture wise. Knowing that I'm on the right path just keeps me going. So I'm very grateful to the people that I have in my corner that help guide me along the way, and I hope that you can find those people as well. So lesson number 9, and maybe a little unconventional, but picking the right partner is, I think, a huge hack for making sure that you achieve wealth. And there's a couple layers to this. So in construction and, meeting wealthy people, you actually see that there's a lot of failed marriages, failed relationships that come in that industry. And what I've learned just observing a lot of these situations is that it comes down to a couple things like mismatched values and not having some tough conversations. And that's why I've seen very high achieving individuals, their wealth kind of gets cut in half because they just weren't with the right partner. And it's not anyone's fault per se, but just knowing that maybe all of this could have been avoided with some tough conversations that were had, or just really being true and focused and intentional about making sure people are aligned on their values, I think can save people a lot of time. The other thing as well is if you pick the right partner, they can help you achieve your goals a lot faster as well. So that's why I've seen both sides of this equation, especially with the people that I'm surrounded with, but I think it's something that cannot be overlooked when we're talking about building wealth, setting ourselves up for the future. We probably just have to sit down and make sure we have some hard conversations. And just because it's fun to be together, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the right person for you to move forward with, as your partner for life. And lesson number 10 that I hope you can take away from this is it's very important for you to manage your way to wealth. So what does that mean? And we talked about a lot of, intentionality. Managing your wealth is one of those things. You have to track it. You have to make sure. Do you know where all of your money is going? What categories are you spending the most on? Do you have certain months that you spend more? And what percentage of each bucket are you actually spending and saving? If you don't know those numbers off the top of your head, if you're going to become wealthy, it's going to be by accident. And usually that just doesn't happen. I mean, the reason why the top percentages exist is because it's rare. And anything that's rare usually takes some sort of effort. So you have to manage this process to give yourself the best chance at achieving what you want to achieve. And I promised that I would give you this one bonus tip. So my bonus tip is try your best to have a clear vision of why you want to achieve wealth. And I'll be honest with you too, like for me, it changes. And it's changed over my years. Like, when I was early on in my 20s, I wanted wealth just because I wanted money. Other times I wanted it because I wanted to have a nice house. Or sometimes, I wanted to compete with my friends. And now more so it's about, am I creating the best life for my family? Or maybe giving myself some sort of freedom so that later on in life, if I needed to be home or work from home and change my career, I would have the flexibility to do what I wanted. So I think I'd be kind of lying to you if I told you that I dialed this in my 20s. But along the way, I had some sort of North Star that was showing me and giving me some reason to move forward and to keep on task. And that's why I think that it's so important for you to really think about why you really want to build wealth. Just because there's so much to it to manage it, you want to make sure that you're doing it for some reason that means something to you. So those are the lessons that I learned in my 20s. If you have any questions about anything, please feel free to comment below and I'll do my best to reply to you. I hope this was helpful for you all and I really appreciate your time. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and hit the notification bell below so you can join our growing family here on YouTube. Thank you, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next video.